It's time for another board game review, and we're diving back into yet another classic from the time of yore. 1999's Pokemon Master Trainer. Just kidding. It's terrible. No, today it's another deck building game. The OG deck building game that spawned my love of deck building. Dominion. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why are you reviewing this game? It came out like 800 years ago, all the way back in 2008. Well, firstly, this is the second edition of Dominion, where they actually decided to include art on half of the cards, and it came out in 2016. And secondly, it's because it's really, really good, and probably like one of the things used most on all of these shelves. Well, except for all the alcohol. Now then, Dominion is a deck building sort of card drafting game, meaning that you'll be starting out with a basic deck and slowly but surely improving that off of a central marketplace and cycling through your deck over and over again until you eventually win the game. Who are you in Dominion? How do you win Dominion? What is Dominion? Dominion? Well, don't worry, the answer to all of these questions are quite simple. In Dominion, you are lords, I think, trying to build up as much land and bits and pieces as you can to create your very own Dominion. Like the name of the game. For it not though, because the theme in Dominion is, well, paper thin at best. But what you actually come for Dominion for is a wonderfully adaptive and varied puzzle for you to both solve and build. Setting up the game, you'll choose 10 cards from this variety box of cards, or even just choosing a setup from the back of the manual. Set them out, deal each player 3 simple estates, 7 simple coppers. You then just, shuffle your deck together, draw 5, and away you go. The last player to have actually owned some land goes first. Now, this simplicity is what makes Dominion so incredibly good. See, on your turn, you have one action and then one buy, in that order specifically. However, when you first start out, you don't have any actions. That's what these 10 central cards are. So you start out and you use the treasures in your deck to buy actions and better treasures, and then before you know it, you're playing Dominion. You're turning your starter, simple, meager, rubbish deck into this incredible machine to generate points for you, so you can eventually win by having the most points. The action cards you'll be buying from the central market can have a number of different and variety of benefits that you can receive. Some will let you play to draw a card and get another card. Others will allow you to have more actions so you can play more cards, so you can draw more cards, which can allow you to then play to get more cards and more actions, so you can then play more cards for more actions for more cards, and that way you have more cards and more actions. Then you have slightly more advanced cards, which are such as ones which allow you to trash cards, permanently removing them from your entire deck, turning your bloated, disgusting machine into something smaller, more refined, more brilliant. And soon you'll be hoping to get to playing every go basically the exact same. Getting to a point where you've got enough money to buy a province. Basically the ones that give you the most victory points, which let you win the game once they've run out. And this is deck building 101. It is so simple but immediately approachable that you can't help but falling in love with it. It is simple, it's easy, it's breezy. The wonders of Dominion are so immediately available that, to be honest, it's one of the few reasons I even get out of bed anymore. You see, these 10 action cards are essentially the main puzzle. They're the main thing you've been coming for. They're what you're trying to solve as to how they interact with one another to allow you to eventually win the game. And this puzzle builds up even more when you take into account you've got all of these cards as well. This menu of an inlay provides so much variation for the game, as you've got dozens of unique cards in the game, in the box to play with, and it's working out how each of these cards interacts with one another in order to create maybe an engine. It's where so much of the game is, and you begin to realize that the layers and layers of this game peel away in your eyes, in front of your eyes, to reveal just a brilliantly fun game. Oh, it's wonderful. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Chris, how different can the cards actually be? Is there that big of a difference between a market, which gives you +1 card, +1 action, +1 buy, +1 money, and like a festival, which gives you +2 actions, +1 buy, +2 money? Yes, very much so. Markets may allow you to draw an extra card, which allow you to cycle your deck, and it's a sort of self-fulfilling action because you get an extra action, but you can only play one terminal action at the end of everything. Basically, an action that doesn't have any more actions, which is fine, it's good. Drawing an extra card can be really useful. However, festivals, not only do they have this creepy looking red-hatted gnome figure that will be living in my nightmares for the rest of my life, even though it doesn't allow you to draw an extra card, it does give you 2 extra actions, meaning you could play a festival, and then if you had it in your card, play a council room to draw another 4 cards, and still 1 more action on top of that to then continue playing other actions if you drew any. It's wonderful. My god, I don't actually think about this much when I'm playing Dominion. This is the most I've ever thought about this game. You see, the standard game of Dominion will be you and your friends slowly taking your turns, seeing what you've got and working out what card they can buy and how they can play their cards to get a new card, to make a new weird and wild addition to their machine that'll hopefully help them in the long run. That one. However, there'll come a point when one of your friends from across the table says something simple like, so I've got 8 money, so I will buy a province. And everyone else on the table tightens in bewilderment, giving out a collective, what? Suddenly the race is on. People are buying victory cards, and you need to do everything you can do to get as many as you can, and damn the consequences. But oh no, my actions have consequences. Damn! As you buy more and more victory cards that you need to win, they go back into your deck, and as you draw them up, they don't do anything. They begin to clog up your elaborate machine, stopping you from doing anything. Like some kind of damn consequences. However, this is wonderful because you'll have moments where you leap into the lead feeling so confident that you've got this in the bag, until you suddenly realise that you stare into your hand and it's nothing but these useless victory cards. What am I meant to do with these? Your machine has jammed and now everyone is catching up. Dominion is all about trying to create some harebrained scheme from the action cards and various bits and pieces that you've got on display. And because it's brought up by these cards in which you can swap them out for others in the box and all sorts of bits and pieces, each game feels different than the last. Especially when you can then get to a point where you either just draw some random cards and make do what you can, or, like my friends try to do, try and come up with a theme for the various cards, like evil, and include the witch or the festival because of the horrifyingly creepy gnome. I just love Dominion so much that I could marry it and then live a happy life forever. But oh no, I know what you're thinking. Chris, this single box will never fill out an entire wedding dress. Expansions. I now pronounce you husband and board game. You may now, kiss. Dominion has a number of expansions that you can pick up and play and add to Dominion, and each one will come with its own unique mechanic of sorts for the game to play with. And to be honest, it's kind of wonderful, and it's interesting how each new mechanic in the boxes, how they manage to tinker with this specific mechanic in a way that somehow has loads of variety and loads of fun to play with, loads new cards. Each box is filled with new cards and tokens and mats and toys to play with, and to be honest, they're just more Dominion for you to dominionate. This is the bit that I like to call briefly talking about each Dominion expansion that I own. Prosperity. It's all about money, which is good, because money means prizes. It introduces platinums and colonies, which are more expensive victory cards and money cards, not respectively, which is great because it makes the game slightly longer, which can sometimes be really fun. And it's all about making big money really bigly. Empires has all sorts of cool bits and pieces, like debt, where you can buy a card, some cards, specific cards, for free, but then you can't buy anything ever again until you've paid off all the debt you got from that card. That's fun. Also, there are split piles where the first half of the pile is one card, but when you get to the bottom, what's the second half? It's a different card with a different ability. That's really interesting. Also, landmarks are a thing, which are constant effects about victory points, which are present throughout the entire game. If you own too many cards, you lose points for owning too many cards. That's really cool. It's really fun. Did somebody say Renaissance? Oh god. It's perfectly fine. It's an okay box full of neat toys. It also introduces villages, which are little tokens which you can essentially bank actions for the future when you may not have any actions. And also has coffers in it, which are in another one which I don't own, which is basically the same, but banking money. It's a perfectly fine box. It's kind of quite simplistic because they kind of stripped it all back a little bit. It's a perfectly good box, like a nice fine spice to add to that extra spice mix. Do you like to be by the seaside? Seaside likes to be by the seaside because it's the seaside. It has a lot of boats in it, and also a bunch of mats and different islands and things, which are really cool. And also duration cards where you play it, you get an effect, and then it stays out on your board, and then at the start of your next turn, you have an additional effect. That's really cool. I wonder how that changes things up. Who could know? I originally hated this box because I'm a nerd and I didn't think boats were cool. I thought boats were for squares, but I found out that the only square here was me for not liking boats. Seaside was actually quite fun. And then finally, my favourite one, Adventures. It has so many bits and pieces in it. You get a load of tokens, which are really cool because they have various effects. My favourite is the Journey token, which is a little picture of a boot, in which when you play cards that deal with that, it flips it over. And then when you flip it over again, a really cool effect happens. It's great. Giants use it, so do Rangers, and they're really fun, and it's just a really fun load of kit. Also, you've got events, which are things you can buy for an effect. They're a public thing. Also, tavern mats and all sorts of different mats and bells and whistles. God, I love Adventures. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Again, don't all of these expansions make what was originally quite a simple and fluid game a little messy and bloated with far too many mechanics going on? And, well, yes, it sort of does. But as long as you manage it and kind of only ever play with maybe 3 expansions at once, you'll find for the most part, you're just getting a lot of variation for a very good game. Yes, sometimes it can seem like gears kind of clash and it almost just, there's too much going on and you barely touch half of it. But at the same time, there's just so much in all of these. How could you not want to play them? Also, this is a little bit much, isn't it? Don't you think? Dominion 2nd edition will set you back 50 United Kingdom dollary dues, give or take from what I could see. And each expansion costs an additional 30 to 50 dollary dues. So really, if you're going to start going this wild, you're going to find yourself putting away a lot of money. Oh god, we spent almost 300 dollary dues on this game. Also though, I live in London. Space is a premium. Look how much space this one game is taking up. The boxes are great and now have the wonderful inlays which make it, you know, great because everything's got its perfect place. However, like, this is unreasonable. I want more expansions as well. So Dominion is just going to take up more and more space. And if you're okay with that, if you've got the luxury of space, great. But keep in mind that one game is going to start taking up more space than you could feasibly deem necessary, and you might have to, like, I don't know, exile a child in order to move into their room for Dominion. Or you can try looking into making like a massive chest of Dominion, but to be honest, I've never seen one that looks good. While I'm on the subject of negativity and things I kind of hate about Dominion, there's not much player interactivity. While it feels cool to combo card after card after card after card after card in order to buy a province, and you begin to feel like you're some kind of king of cards, which is actually what I think you're meant to be in this game. A king, that is. Not of cards, of land. It's kind of boring. But you end up playing so many bits of cards, so it feels great. However, sometimes if you're not the one who's doing that and you're just sat there waiting for your turn, and then your turn just ends up being, I just have enough money to buy a province. It can kind of drag the entire game out, especially because the other player may not have even finished shuffling their entire deck together again to have their go, which is going to take another 3 minutes. This issue normally comes from, well, a lack of player interaction that's in the game, meaning you don't really care about other people's turns, and as they're taking long turns, the entire thing kind of grinds to a halt. Interestingly, this doesn't really take place in another deck builder, Star Realms, because in Star Realms, even though turns can be equally as long and convoluted, at the end of it you normally end up getting shot in the face by spaceships, so to some extent you actually care what's going on. In Dominion, you don't get shot in the face by spaceships, so you don't actually really care that much. Also, the few bits of actual player interaction that are in the game come in the form of attacks, which are specific types of cards, action cards, which when you play them, you make all the other players do something specific, like discard some cards, or trash cards, or gain a curse, or something like that. And they're fun to play with. However, they're also kind of not fun, because when you're the only one playing with these attack cards, because you're the only one that have actually bought them, you begin to feel kind of awful. You feel like you're the one who's been invited to the party and you've decided to just be the only one who's kicking the party over. Everyone else is trying to put together some little fun bits and pieces, but you're just constantly kicking the cake into the floor, and everyone is really stressed because of it. It kind of sucks. Also, the game doesn't really work 2 players that well. You have basically 2 major outcomes that will occur when you're playing in a 2-player game of Dominion. One is that you both go for the exact same scheme, going for basically the exact same solution to the cards that you're presented with, and then hope to out-efficiency one another, which can be fine. The issue being is you have the randomness of shuffling a deck, So you can suddenly lose because you find yourself one turn behind purely because you just unfortunately didn't draw the right cards at the right time. And because you're playing the exact same thing, being one turn behind can ultimately mean you lose the game. It's a bit boring. Or the other thing that can happen is that you both go for very, very different solutions that don't interact in any way, shape or form, but one of the two will be slightly faster maybe, or benefit significantly more from having an entire stack of cards, such as, I don't know, festivals and markets, where just owning all the markets can be really useful because you just draw markets until the end of the day. In a multiplayer game, that's less of a problem when you're going for different things, because in theory, there's like at least 3 of you that to constantly dip into every possible solution. So there's always this crossover, so not everyone has all the cards. But in a 2-player game, it's gonna happen and it's gonna be terrible. If you want a good 2-player solution for playing a deck builder game, Star Realms is a great game. It's a fraction of the price, it's a fraction of the size, and it plays a fraction of the players. Specifically 2 players. It's a 2-player game. Star Realms is fun. Finally, and oh god, is it easy to criticize the things you love so much. The theme is kind of basically not there at all. It took me literally several years to find out that you're actually a king in this game. Ugh. But also, does it really matter? Like, the art is a bit hazy and a bit weird. Does anyone care that you're playing down like a giant or a village or a market? No, not really, because it doesn't matter to the game. It's just a really fun set of mechanics for you to enjoy and play, which does sort of mean that the game goes from I play my village to draw 1 card, which is another village to draw another card. With my additional actions, I will play a council room to buy to get another 4 cards, and then I will spin that in, and instead rapidly turns into +1 card, +2 actions, +1 card, +3 actions at this point, +4 more cards, so I still have 2 actions, which then means I can play another card for +1 more card and 1 buy, which is okay, I guess. It's kind of fine. Like, I would love for there to be a better sense of theme throughout the entire thing. But hey, for some, this would actually be a benefit, because I know I've mentioned Dominion to some people who are like, oh, that's a pretty terrible card art and also boring theme that's incredibly overdone because it's yet again another medieval game. But you don't really notice it. So if anything, the lack of apparent theming almost works in favour of Dominion, because that way you can play Dominion. Overall though, Dominion is a great game. Don't let my last spurt of negativity put you off. It is a wonderful experience where the games can be fast and fancy-free and fun, or cool, calculating and taxing as you're trying to work out what you're meant to be doing. It is a wonderfully versatile, diverse game, and I'm aware that a lot of this could be because I've invested this much into a single game, but at the same time, when I first played Dominion for the very first time, I immediately fell in love with it. I fell in love with deck builders as a concept and have bought many, many more, a lot of which are great and fun, but Dominion will always be a little special because it is just pure deck building. And to be honest, I can't recommend it enough. I will recommend it quite a lot though. Buy and play Dominion. Also, there's loads more expansions still coming out for it, so if you do want to invest this much and more, don't worry, because like there is always more Dominion coming out all the time. All Dominion, all day. Dominion.